Hey there, it's Mike Cooch. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 most important things you need to know if you want to be successful selling marketing services to small businesses. Okay, there are so many people right now that are in the agency business. They're struggling and they're trying to figure out what is going wrong. And I've been selling to small businesses my entire career, and I had an agency for a period of time, and I want to explain to you what these 3 factors are so that you know how to go after this business and have success, okay? The number one thing, and this is gonna be very counterintuitive for many of you, but you've gotta stick with me here, is that you have got to give up on being an agency, okay? You've got to give up on being an agency, all right? What I mean by that is that when you're selling to small businesses, you have absolutely no viable business opportunity to provide professional services as an agency to those small businesses. Okay, there is no business out there that has done that successfully and made it work. Okay, so when I say agency specifically, what I'm referring to is you going out and doing any sort of professional services, custom services, things like that, where you're working one-on-one with a client to try and help them be successful in their marketing. Okay, you can do that if you're working with much larger companies with much larger budgets, but there are 0 cases where you can find somebody that is doing that model successfully with small businesses. And there's a reason why. Small businesses do not have the budgets to be able to pay you, and they do not have the strategic long-term focus to be able to stick with you when something's not quite working the way they want it to work. They're going to give up, they're going to stop paying you, and they're going to fire you. And that's what happens to all small business agency owners that try to do something where they're an agency and they're offering a professional service and they're doing custom work. You've got to give up on that entirely. Okay, so the language that I like to use and that I teach other people to use is that I provide marketing services. I am a marketing services provider. And you may think, Mike, we're just talking about words here. Well, we're not just talking about words. There's a very, very big difference between providing marketing services and being an agency, okay? The models that I know can be successful do not rely at all on any sort of professional services. There's no custom work, there's no one-on-one work. Everything is sold as a product that can be delivered to many, many, many businesses using the exact same cookie cutter format, okay? You can still provide marketing services to those businesses and services that are very valuable to them and very effective, but they cannot be done as any sort of professional service or anything where you're doing any sort of custom work like an agency normally would. Okay, if you go to any of the agencies that are dealing with mid-sized companies and bigger businesses, they are doing very custom work. They are getting very smart marketing people on their team, and they're essentially selling those people by the hour to very large corporations that will pay very, very big hourly rates for them to do their work. Or those big businesses are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on advertising campaigns, and the advertising agencies are managing those for them, and they're taking a percentage of that spend, but the spend is big enough that it's very lucrative for them. So if you're dealing with big businesses, you can do that stuff. But if you're dealing with small businesses with very limited budgets and very, very limited strategic thinking at those businesses about what it takes to grow, offering any sort of professional service is a recipe for failure. And believe me, there have been many bright people that have already tried this, that have already invested tens and in some cases even hundreds of millions of dollars to go after this market, and they failed. You are not going to be the first one to be successful. So please listen to me on this. Stop being an agency and be a marketing services provider instead. You can still call yourself an agency if that's what you think you need to do because that's what the marketplace is used to, the language that they're used to. But the reality is the businesses that are providing marketing services to small businesses that are successful are businesses like Valpak, Groupon, radio stations, newspapers, newsletters, things like that, that have some sort of productized offer. And those offers, again, they provide marketing on behalf of their small business customers, but they can do it at scale and they can do it by offering the exact same cookie cutter offer to hundreds or thousands of businesses at the same time. Okay, so that's number one. Get this idea of being an agency, of going and working with your clients one-on-one and having meetings with them and charging them $5,000 for this and $50,000 for that and doing custom work for them. Get that all out of your head, or you are just doomed for failure or doomed for essentially being a tiny little business where you have like 3 clients at a time that are paying you and you're stuck. And if that's the case, you might as well just go get a job, because that's a miserable existence as an entrepreneur, okay? So don't do it. So that's number one. Get rid of this idea of being an agency. Okay, number two is that then you have to have a very scalable service delivery package that you can sell and deliver to many clients at the same time very quickly. Okay, just like you're going to now sell a very productized service, as I mentioned before, you've got to have a very structured service delivery that scales, okay, that you can offer, again, not to just one client at a time, not to just 3, but you could offer to 30, to 50, to 100 by being able to leverage, most likely, technology so that you can scale that service offering to a lot of people without adding a ton of overhead. Okay, the best agency businesses that I know are servicing hundreds of customers, and they only have a very, very small team, because almost all of the service delivery is done through technology, versus the handful of agencies that out there that are, maybe they're making the Inc. 500 and the 5,000 and all that type of stuff, and you see that they have, $3.5 million, $4 million in revenue, but they also have 30 or 35 employees. Those businesses are very, very limited in their profitability. They've got tons of overhead. They've got payroll to make every 2 weeks. It's not a very fun existence, okay? You need to have a service delivery that you can scale and offer it, again, to 10 customers at a time, 50 customers at a time, 100 customers at a time, because there is an onboarding process that's structured that feeds them right into some sort of delivery that is technology leveraged, so it doesn't require you to add overhead and to add employees on your team to keep up with it, okay? But that has to be in place so that you can take advantage of the third critical component. The third critical component is that you've got to have what I call a high leverage sales process. Okay, what do I mean by a high leverage sales process? Well, most people that that are selling to small businesses, they're doing what I call little onesie twosie sales. Okay, they're getting a lead and they're getting so excited about that lead. They're going over and meeting with them in person in their office, and they're putting together proposals, and maybe they come back out for another meeting and they have a couple of phone calls, and then they get some tiny little deal that isn't enough to really cover all the costs of doing that and all the overhead of running the business. And then they're doing custom work to try and keep that one client happy because they don't know where the next one's coming from. Again, that's a terrible existence, and that's a terrible sales and marketing system. You need to have a sales and marketing system that can bring in lots and lots of businesses into your pipeline at the same time, and then again, have that service delivery system so that you could actually bring on 10 of them or 30 of them in a month and have it work just fine. The problem is, if you don't have that service delivery system in place first, then you can't put the high leverage sales system to use, right? Because if you bring in 30 or 50 clients and they're expecting you to do professional services, you're never going to be able to keep up with that. So that's why people get caught in this trap I call the cycle of doom, where you're going out and you're just selling onesie twosies because the service delivery that you have to deliver is designed for onesie twosie delivery as well. And then you're just in this, again, just very miserable situation of having a few clients at a time. Maybe you add a couple of clients every month or a few clients every quarter. And really what you have is a job with a whole lot of stress now because you now have overhead and employees and bills that you have to pay every 2 weeks. It's not a fun thing to do. It's not a fun business to run. So the third thing is you've got to have a high leverage sales process that brings in lots of prospects at the same time and can turn lots of them into customers at the same time as well. To do that, you have to have two things. One, you have to have, again, a technology leveraged process for your sales. You can't just rely on every single prospect you're getting on the phone with or having meetings with. You've got to be able to drive them into an online sales process with automation that can convert those prospects into at least hot opportunities, maybe not closed deals, but at least hot opportunities without you having to have a high degree of involvement. And then second you've got to leverage channels. Okay, what are channels? Channels are businesses or associations or maybe it's magazines or trade groups or whatever it is that have already gathered all of your prospects for you. Okay, if I was selling to dentists, the ideal channel would be the US Dental Association. Okay, if I was selling to chiropractors, they have their own version of that. Okay, those associations have already done the hard work of gathering all of the contact information of all those dentists. They know where they're at. They know how long they've been in business. They have their ear already because they're sending them newsletters and professional updates on a regular basis. Maybe they're inviting them to trade shows throughout the year. You know, all the dentists go to Vegas a couple times a year or off to the Caribbean for continuing education, you know, boondoggles. Those are the types of channels that you can run an ad in their newsletter, or you can get a speaking engagement at their next trade show, or you know, you can get them to run a webinar for you because you're going to educate their base of customers and help them build their businesses. That's exactly how I grew my agency, my marketing services business, to hundreds of new customers in a very short period of time, is we ran webinars through an existing channel so that we didn't have to do all of the hard work and expense of going out and finding each of those customers one by one. Okay, but working backwards, you can only do that if you have a very automated sales process, and that sales process then leads to a very automated cookie cutter scalable service delivery. If you don't have those things in place, then none of this works. So you've got to have all three of these components. Number one, stop thinking like an agency. Stop thinking anything custom, anything one-on-one, and start thinking, how can I deliver services that can be rolled out to hundreds of customers at the same time? Number two, you've got to have that service delivery process that's completely scalable, leveraging technology so that you can bring on all of those clients, all of those customers, you know, at the same time. You can't just, you know, be in a position where you have to do onesie twosie onboarding and meeting with people face to face or anything like that. It's a recipe for failure. And then number three, the high leverage sales system, where you're leveraging technology and you're tapping into channels. You have those three things, you can build an incredible business selling marketing services to small businesses, but it won't be an agency. Get that out of your mind. All right, I hope this helps you.